I like to wonder, is it haunted because it's abandoned, or is it abandoned because it is haunted?
That's KJ, a Wisconsin-based explorer and researcher. She's had a lot of time to think about that question.
And I definitely feel there's one place in particular that I truly felt that something else was in there with me. I'm not going to say someone, but there was something else in there.
For years now, she's been letting herself into houses that nobody has lived in since the Nixon administration.
I don't know, maybe there's some adrenaline to it, there's some little bit of fear, but starting this in a global pandemic, I wasn't afraid.
There are people all over the state, the country, and the world who spend their time looking at houses they have no intention of buying. They're not agents and they're not contractors. Nobody sent them and nobody is expecting them. House hunters, more or less. Just not looking for a place to live. And there's a word for it. Urbex. Welcome to Weird Wisconsin, a podcast about forgotten, haunted, and sometimes downright weird history from the Badger State. Each episode you'll hear firsthand from people who live these stories in some way or another. We follow them through the details, the dead ends, and everything in between. Episode 2. Houses Frozen in Time. There are about 2.8 million houses standing in Wisconsin. Most of them are newer than you would guess. Post-war subdivisions, 70s ranches, whatever went up in the last 30 years on land that used to be a farm. Nationally, only about 1 in 9 houses was standing before 1940. In Wisconsin, the share runs higher than that. This state was settled early, and it was built hard. And a lot of what was built is still up. There are some number of those old houses that are empty. Nobody's coming back to them. There is no agency that keeps a list of them. They're not for sale and they're not between owners. They're not waiting on closing. They're empty. Doors open, roofs going soft, and mail has stopped being delivered here decades ago. Those are the ones that this is about. There is a house on a road that you drive frequently. Maybe you passed by it this morning. You've seen it 100 times, and you've never once slowed down. Here's what it looks like to somebody who does.
Well, Urbex is kind of a mix of urban exploring, and it really means just taking in the beauty of these abandoned places, whether they are old farmhouses or old abandoned psychiatric hospitals, or even just old barns, just old structures that people have abandoned for whatever reason, and finding the beauty in those places and capturing that on film.
It's short for urban exploration, which is misleading because almost nothing in this episode happens in the city.
There's so many abandoned houses and farmhouses and old cemeteries out on these back roads kind of near where I live. So I just pulled over and thought, I'm just going to get a little closer. Because everybody drives by these houses, they ignore them, they pity them, they just don't take any time. And I thought, I want to see what this is like. And so I just went in one.
It usually starts the same way. Somebody drives past the same house enough times that one day they stop the car. For Jessica, that happened when she was 15.
I first got into urban exploration before knowing that urban exploration was a hobby or even had a name. And where I happened to live was near the old Indianapolis airport. So there were a ton of abandoned houses, a short bike ride away from where I was living. I would just ride my bike through all of these back roads, country roads, and see these houses, and eventually I would work up the courage to approach them and go inside. And I had a little pocket Nikon camera, and I would take pictures of what I'd see.
She kept at it through her teens, stopped for college, and started again years later. She moved to Wisconsin in January of 2019. And about 2 years later, the world shut down. And a 40-something woman outside of Madison with nowhere to be and nothing to do started taking long drives.
Well, I had that thought in the same sentence in the same day. I was like, that's an abandoned house. I'm going to go in it. And there I went. This was March of 2020. So if you think back to March of 2020, the world was on pause. Everything was shut down. It was a ghost town everywhere. And quite frankly, I was just bored out of my mind. So I had some extra time on my hands and I thought, I'm just going to go on some country drives, right? There's nothing else to do other than, quote, stay at home. The very first place I went was an abandoned farmhouse outside of Madison, I'll say. It was in Dane County, and I had driven by it before. I only really noticed it in the spring because the trees weren't blooming, and it was just kind of artistic and strange, just this abandoned house on the side of a highway with all these skeletal trees around it, and it just looked so sad. And I was like, that's so cool. I want to get some pictures of it. Starting this in a global pandemic, I wasn't afraid. It was something to do that didn't involve any other people and didn't involve politics and didn't involve money. I could just go and just look and not touch and come back with only photos.
So here's the first problem. Abandoned houses are not listed anywhere. There is no map. And the people who know where they are will not tell you.
Nobody else seems to know where it is, and nobody else has gone in it. And I'm not telling you where it is because then people go wreck them. And they do, and people do that. Don't get me on a tangent, but it's like, don't share locations. I don't trust other people's intentions. I'm there to look and not touch.
You're going to hear that a lot in this episode. And it's not either of them being cagey with me. It's the first rule of the whole hobby. And both of my guests hold on to it. No addresses, no road names, not on a podcast, not on the internet, and not to a stranger who asks very nicely. So you find these houses for yourself, which, done properly, looks less like an adventure and more like a research project.
I've found that in my search for places that it's a lot more convenient for me and saves on gas, mileage on my car, time wasted if I just do research online first. So I might find a picture online that I'm interested in, and I try to find anything I can on that house or people that live around it, any clues, even just the county. I can go on Google Maps and just start scanning roads, and I'm looking for places that don't have driveways that are visible, or places that look like there are holes in the roof, or if there's junk in the yard, things like that. And then I'll see if there's street view. If there's not, I still put a pin in it. And then I keep looking in that area until I have a cluster of pins so that I can go drive that hour or 2 hours and do a bunch of loops and hit like 10 different places that are potential locations.
I tried this once, and it was like 30 minutes of scanning country roads on a laptop with nothing to show for it, and I really never tried it again. But she has learned where to point the map, and it turns out that abandoned houses are not that scattered at all.
It can be a time-intensive process. I've definitely had many forays into Google Maps and not found anything. Another thing is I have a lot of luck along rivers, railroads, towns that maybe had an industry that the industry has left. You think about places where people were drawn to, that there was economic opportunity, and then suddenly that economic opportunity is gone. And then the people are going to have to leave to find other jobs, or the elderly population has passed away and the kids don't find it viable to live in that area anymore.
Rivers, railroads, towns where the work left. That is not a hobbyist's hunch. That is an economic map of Wisconsin drawn backwards, from the buildings that got left behind. But finding the house is the easy part. It's way more difficult to find whoever still owns it. But that turns out to be mostly a research problem.
It's not too hard, in my opinion, to find who owns these properties, to try to get permission to either like get through a fence or even inside the house if it's stable and safe enough. A lot of the times you can find who owns it through tax records, which is public information. You can search by county. There are GIS maps that make it really easy to find the plot of land you're looking for. Usually, the person that owns it is listed, their name and address, and then you can write them a letter. Or if their address is local, which it often is, you can drive over to where they live and be brave and knock on the door and explain why you're interested in the house and see if they'll take you over there. And something that's really great about that in particular is that opens up the dialogue for learning about the house, who lived there, what happened here, what's the history, why is it like this now, are there plans for it in the future. I mean, sometimes people even share old photos if they're really excited to share this history of the house with a stranger.
And there is an older way to do it too. You knock on the door next door.
I found that more people are really interested in talking about these places and talking about the history or the family that they know, or, oh yeah, that's old Joe's house. He went to a nursing home 20 years ago. And a lot of people don't quite frankly understand the allure. They're like, yeah, you can go ahead and take pictures of that house. I don't care. It's ugly. Like, they don't see what I see. You know, I'm just this 40-something-year-old redheaded chick. I hope I don't look threatening in any way, but I said, oh, it's just a beautiful house. I want to take pictures. Do you guys know anything about it? And a lot of people are okay with it.
Say you find one, and let's say the door is open. Here's what's waiting.
One of my favorite places still is standing, I think. It was a house that's been abandoned since, I want to say, 1972 or 76. And I know this because the calendar was on the wall and the dates were crossed off all the way across September of 1970, what have you. And then one day the calendar wasn't crossed off. And I thought, what happened on this day? Did the person die? Did the person move? Or what happened? Because this entire house looked like it had been set up for some sort of an estate sale. There were dolls everywhere. There were books. There were clothes. There were everything that's in somebody's house just sitting there. And it was so beautiful and just hauntingly strange to walk through this living room. There was multiple generations of people who clearly lived in this house.
A calendar that stops in September. 50 years of dust on everything underneath it. Houses like that are not rare, but they are the ones that hold you.
A lot of the times, the houses that have everything left behind inside, you could spend hours there. It's like modern archaeology. You're learning about somebody's life, their happy times, their sad times, what their family was like, pictures, you see old cards, letters, sometimes diaries. You're going into a space and you're learning about the people that used to live there. You might see pictures left behind or cards or documents, maybe prized possessions at one point. You'll see the markings on the doorways where kids grew up. So you're getting a story of who used to live there and maybe what their life was like and who they were as people and how they lived and loved and learned and had all these memories.
And sometimes what a house has kept is stranger than that.
Families might come to clean out a house and they take what they want and nobody wanted the porn collection. There's been a live owl that was really cute. Lots of baby raccoons. Hundreds, if not thousands, of typewriters in one house. And then the ones that really get me are the ones where everything's left behind. It looks like nobody came to clean out the house or take anything. Family photos, doctorate level diplomas, trophies, ribbons, anything sentimental, it's all there still.
So if you haven't really guessed, none of this is really safe, and it's not legal. Both of those things are worth saying plainly. Let's start with the building itself.
Yeah, these places are dangerous to be in. I'm not going to lie. There's rusty nails everywhere. There's shingles actively falling. There might be bricks falling in. Everything from the weather to animals. I've run into raccoons, vultures, squirrels, rats, mice. I mean, there's asbestos everywhere. There's broken glass. There's light fixtures hanging at dangerous angles. And one wrong move and you might hurt yourself. So it's a dangerous hobby, but it's it's a hobby nonetheless. I mean, some people want to run marathons and climb mountains. I just want to snoop around an abandoned house that's full of asbestos. It's interesting to me.
That is the version where nothing goes wrong.
Real dangers, aside from getting caught trespassing, getting a ticket, or maybe just an angry landowner exercising their Second Amendment rights. A lot of the times, since places are abandoned, no upkeep, the floors are unstable. I have fallen through a floor into a basement before, had major bruising along one side of my body, and even at least one broken rib, and was very lucky that my camera strap didn't hang me, because my camera was caught above, dangling and swinging when I hit the basement floor. And also very lucky that I was able to get out of the basement without calling for help. There are wild animals that might live in the houses. Like I said, I've encountered raccoons, I've encountered buzzards. You could find worse potentially. And then there's also the potential of squatters anywhere that might be very protective of their found home.
If you go in, just know that you could get hurt. Don't go by yourself. You fall through the floorboards, no one's going to find you. Possibly for decades.
Then there's the other cost, because there is no such thing legally as a house that belongs to nobody.
Everything is owned by somebody, even if it's just the bank or the town. There is almost no abandoned property, and when property is abandoned and taxes aren't paid for a while, the local city or town usually takes control of it. So it is something that if you do this, you have to be very aware of. You could get a ticket, you could get in trouble.
In Wisconsin, that's statute 943.13. Trespass to land, entering enclosed, cultivated, or undeveloped land without the owner's consent is a Class B forfeiture, up to a $1,000 fine. Not a criminal charge, a ticket, and albeit an expensive one.
I always do my due diligence to research and contact the owners, get permission. If I can't, it's always legal to pull off on the side of the road and take pictures of what you can see from the public roadway.
So let me be frank about this, because it matters. Every house you are hearing about was entered with the owner's permission, or photographed from a public road, where anyone is free to stand. Neither of them have broken into any house without permission. They have never forced themselves through a door or a window or broken a lock. If a house is locked, they can't find the owner, they take a photo and go home.
You have to be careful, respectful. Usually people are willing to tell you about the history as long as you're kind, and they're just saying that you're interested in the house. You think it's visually interesting. You love taking these photos. And usually they're willing to talk to you a little more about it. At least in where I explore, I usually explore rural areas instead of in cities where they might have a lot more problems with urbex in general.
Empty is not the same as unoccupied. Something is almost always living in these houses. And usually it has feathers.
So I go upstairs and it's like the old attic where it's like you take the stairs into the ceiling and you come up and your head comes into the attic first. So it always was just my head up looking through this stairwell, and I turn and I hear a hiss. And I thought it was a cat, like it sounded like a... And I thought, what the hell is that? And it is a vulture spreading its wings. It is huge. I've never seen a vulture up close. That was a bit too close. It was like 3 feet from me, and it was just like, get out of here. This is my house. I'm like, Okay, bye. And I just went right back down and I left. So you never know who's inhabiting these places, but those are things that have startled me. And that's the thing. It's more the living things that startle me than any nefariousness elsewhere.
So we've got raccoons, squatters, vultures. All of it's explainable. And then there's that one house way up north that sticks in your mind long after you visit it.
I went in there and I felt that I could smell someone. As weird as that sounds, like I smelled like a male presence, whether it was like not cologne or body odor. There was just this like smell of a person and I can't explain it. But I didn't think that, oh my God, someone else is in here. I just thought someone never left. But it felt spiritual to me. And as I was thinking about it and I walked up the staircase, an owl came flying down, just right over my head. Just sat there and it just stared at me. I thought the timing was interesting, that I was immediately thinking, I think there's someone still here, and this owl comes out of nowhere.
KJ went outside and took a few more pictures of the house.
I actually might have shown you this picture a long time ago. It was in the winter. I caught what to me looked like a humanoid type of foggy apparition standing on the porch after I left. And what I do, and you know this as a paranormal investigator, I take like 3 photos in succession. And I'm trying to take artistic photos, but sometimes I just want to get like boom, 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 3 shots just to get lighting and all of that. And when I came back and looked at those photos that were taken within all 3 photos in 1 second, one of these had this humanoid figure standing on the porch after I left. And I have to wonder, did I trust my gut? Was there someone still there? Did he die and leave his house and come back as an owl? I don't know. But I liked that. I felt calm. I never really felt scared. I just felt like someone's watching me in this house and they're not alive.
KJ has a way of describing the difference between a house that is holding something and a house that is only holding what happened inside of it.
I felt this residualness of these people that had owned all these things and had all these dolls and read all these books and had this gorgeous piano and just all these things. It's like, remember in the movie Titanic where they have this like flash sequence of Rose and Jack on the head of the boat or whatever, and it like fades into the abandoned boat sunk at the bottom. You know, there's like this bleed through of time. That's what I see in my mind's eye. But in this house with the owl, I didn't see that. It felt too modern. It felt too, there's someone still in here. It's very different. There's degrees of spidey sense, and it's very hard to articulate it, but I know it in my gut when I'm in there.
When you spend enough hours alone in other people's empty houses, something like that will happen to you eventually.
I went inside and it was dead silent. Like no movement outside, no birds, no bug sounds, crickets. It was just completely silent. So I didn't spend much time there and left because it felt very unwelcoming.
Now with Urbex, there are 2 rules. Everybody who does this knows them well.
Don't share locations with people that you don't know and don't trust. And don't break or take anything in general. So you don't share locations because you don't know what the people's intentions are that are trying to get to this place. Are they arsonists? Are they there to have a rage room party? Like, are they going to destroy the property more? Are they going to vandalize it? Are they going to burn it down? And then you don't take things because you want to, one, respect the property and make sure that it's preserved for other explorers.
Okay, so you take nothing, that is the rule, and it's a good rule. But stand in a room where a family's photographs are curling up on the floor, there's damp letters going soft, and nobody has come for any of it in 50 years. Is that where the rule starts to feel like it's a technicality? Maybe more of a guideline?
I'm going to contradict myself. I have taken a couple things. But here's the thing. I'm not stealing copper wires and selling them. I'm not stealing things that I'm like, oh, that's worth a lot of money, because it's not. I've gone in houses where they've collected antiques, and I feel like I just want to cry because I'm seeing the state of this house, and I'm like, they should have sold these. These are worth so much money, but they're literally garbage at this point. So I have taken a pipe out of a house. I've taken a pipe and a book, because a pipe, to me, it was handmade. It looked handmade. It had some inlay in it, like what's it called? Abalone inlay. It was just a beautiful pipe. It still had like tobacco in it. And there was just something so beautiful about it to me, and so indicative of someone loved this house. They sat in their chair every night after plowing the fields and smoked their pipe and read a book. And I knew this house, people were starting to realize that it was open. And I thought, people are going to steal, people are going to trash. Let me just take one little keepsake from this. And so I have a little pipe and a little book from the House of Dolls, as I call it.
Paper is a harder problem because it rots.
Yeah, it is a tricky situation on taking things out of houses, because on one hand, you don't want to disrespect the family that still maybe owns it or might have memories associated with items and not know that they're in an abandoned house. And then there's the leaving items so other explorers get to have the same experience that you did. But there's also, I have always a want to save like paper items, historical documents, and try to see if I can get them to somebody that would preserve them, a local historical society, or maybe a living family member that doesn't know, things like that. It's definitely something that tears me in two directions.
There is a lot on the corner of a road I drive sometimes. It used to have a house on it. A big old thing, empty for years. And then one day it wasn't there at all. It was just grass. But nobody's built anything on top of it. They just took it away. I don't entirely know why that bothers me as much as it does. It turns out it is the one thing everybody who does this has in common.
In that house that was March 2020, it's gone. And anytime I drive by it, I'm like, oh, nobody knows now. It's just this patch of grass with a shed. They left the shed, but they took the house down. And so then I have more questions. I'm like, why didn't they just demo the whole thing? There's so many questions, because someone's still paying property taxes on these places. Sometimes you can see that someone has mowed the lawn. I mean, the house might be crumbling and has a tree growing through it, but someone mowed the lawn. And I wonder, okay, why mow the lawn? Like, what are you trying to do?
There are so many houses that I've been to that I've tried to go back to and that are gone. And I'm just like, oh, it's heartbreaking, because you develop an attachment to these places, that you love them in sometimes the same way that the owners of the places might have loved them in the past, that they feel like home, even though they're in the state they're in. The US is such a young country. It's definitely a shame that we're losing what historic architecture we do have.
So she's trying to get ahead of it. She calls the owners of houses already scheduled for demolition and says, I know you're tearing it down. The plans are in place. Can you just let me inside for an hour? I only want to photograph it before it's gone. Every time she gets the same question back. Why? Why do you care?
I'm not sure why there's such a black and white opinion on old houses and their value versus new items and houses. I've found that with people and antiques, that I'm like, this older item is such better quality, it looks better, it feels better, it's already proven that it can last this long and it's going to continue to last, versus buying the new item that's going to be either technologically obsolete in 2 or 3 years, or it's going to break and you can't fix it. Goes with the old houses too, is people don't see the value in fixing things anymore. We live in this disposable society. So people have started seeing the houses as disposable, and that new ones are being built all the time. But the trade-off is that the new ones aren't built the way the old ones were. The timber isn't as strong. The architectural detail isn't there at all. And it's just kind of losing the charm of many towns.
Yeah, I mean, these places could be gone in 10 years. I mean, 50 years for sure, but I mean, we do have a limited amount of time with them, so we need to respect them as much as we can.
And with the surging popularity, a lot more attention coming to it, it's the accessibility is dwindling for sure.
Wisconsin is a great place to do this, and there's a reason for it.
Is so many people came here. I mean, it's very primarily German and Norwegian. That's my history. Farmers. Everyone in my family is farmers. People moved to Wisconsin. This was their farm. This was their job. This was their home. This was what they did for generations. And many, if not most of these houses I've been to were someone's dream. It was the American dream, right? It was their bread and butter, and multiple generations of people lived and worked and died in these houses. And they're still there. The descendants are moved on. Maybe they moved to some metropolitan thing. They don't want to be a farmer, but their ancestors and where they started is still there, just rotting in a field. And it's poignant and it's artistic and poetic and it's strange and it's depressing to me all at the same time. But I like that. I like that confliction of ideas.
Okay, so one more thing and then I promise we're done. Jess doesn't only photograph these houses, she studied portraiture, and in her last year of art school, she needed somewhere to put her figures.
I needed to find a way to make a cohesive body of work. And I'm like a portrait and figure artist primarily. So I needed to figure out a way to tell a story with the portraits and figures that I was drawing. It's really hard to have the time to draw at the detail that I do a full scene or a full background, especially at the scale that my instructors wanted me to work at. So I had the idea of what if I tried drawing on photos? And then that took me back to the photos that I used to take of abandoned houses when I was a teenager. And I was like, well, what if I told the story of these houses in a way that they were more of a sad story? There's a lot of loss, nostalgia. They used to be somewhere that people loved to be. And now they're sitting empty and being taken back by nature. I wanted to show how these places weren't necessarily scary places, but more sad places. And they had memories that were still attached to them.
An emptiness she's going to fill in later.
I go into these places or around the outsides of these places and photograph with the intention of creating a void to put a person in later. So I kind of photograph thinking of an emptiness that I'm going to fill with my art.
KJ called it a bleed through of time, and Jess draws it. And know that at some point when you're standing in a room with somebody's wedding photograph still on the wall, you're going to understand why people do this.
I like that confliction of ideas, and yeah, it's sad, but it's beautiful in a different way too. And I feel like if I can just go in there and give it a little love just by looking around and taking some pictures, then hey, what harm is that?
In 2022, Wisconsin had 58,521 farms. In 1997, it had nearly 80,000. That's more than 21,000 gone in 25 years. And between 2017 and 2022 alone, the state lost 6,272 farms and about 534,000 acres of farmland. Some of that was sold, some of it was absorbed into bigger operations. But some of it still has a house standing on it with the furniture right where somebody left it. Nobody is counting those. There's no list, and the only people keeping track are the ones who go out and look. One more time, because it does matter, both KJ and Jessica do this the legal way. They find the owner and they ask. When there's nobody left to ask, they stay on the road and photograph where anyone is free to do so. And neither of them will tell you where it is. I've asked many times, and they still haven't told me. A location, once it's out, doesn't come back. The house gets stripped, or tagged, or maybe even burned down. So if this has made you want to go out and find one for yourself, please do it the legal way, and make sure you go with a friend. Weird Wisconsin is produced by me, Josh Hughes. Our theme is by Tyler Quinn, and custom episode artwork is made by Rachel Dugan. I highly encourage you follow all of us on social media, including our guests. Links are in the show notes below. Until next time, this is Weird Wisconsin.